Welcome to the Tamkin community and everyone joining us on all the other networks. We would love to welcome you to another Tamkin International Talk seminar, which is going to be led by Miss Evelyn Tai. And this one is entitled Leadership in Perpetual Motion. So we're going to look at how to stay firm when everything around us is moving about. So I'm going to now hand over to Miss Evelyn Tai to guide us in the lesson for today. But like I always say, remember to take notes and also be ready to ask questions when the question time comes. Miss Evelyn, on to you.
Thank you. Can you all see my presentation?
100.
Thank you, Fundación Tamkin, for the invitation, and thank you all for being here. Let me ask you something, no need to answer out loud. When was the last time you felt truly caught up as a leader? If you are leading today in any sector, at any level, anywhere in the world, chances are you are not driving change. You are reacting to it. And yet you are still expected to provide clarity, direction, and stability. We are living in an era of perpetual motion, an era where stability is no longer static. It is something we create while moving. The question is no longer how do we stop the motion? The question is how do we live ethically, humanly, and responsibly while everything keeps moving? That is what we will explore together today. And the core challenge we must solve is this. Stability is found not in stopping motion, but in mastering, once again, ethical movement. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we missed it, but that is too low and we reach it. Traditional leadership, whether change resistant or even change resilient, is no longer sufficient. Today's leaders must become change responsible, proactive, human-centered, and ethically grounded. In this environment, trust is the new currency. Profits follow trust, not the other way around. The quote we read matters because in times of disruption, the real danger isn't ambition, it's aiming too low. Leaders may succeed operationally while failing ethically, culturally, or systematically. The data confirms that perpetual motion is our shared reality. The question is, how do we systematically lead through this? To find the answer, we must go beyond theory. We are conducting a mini X-ray scan, not to celebrate specific people, but to diagnose the structural DNA of ethical success across some of the most volatile sectors: AI, global policy, and consumer luxury. The 6 leaders we selected, no more time-wise, unfortunately, were chosen because their success is impossible to separate from their publicly articulated ethical responses to extreme boundary-shattering disruption. They are our case studies in responsibility. Dario Amodei, CEO and co-founder Anthropic; Arthur Mensch, CEO and co-founder Mistral AI; Lena Nair, Global CEO Chanel; Satya Nadella, Chairman and CEO Microsoft; Ursula von der Leyen, President European Commission; and President Zelensky. There are many other leaders worth studying, evidently. Figures such as Jacinda Ardern, former Prime Minister of New Zealand, often seen as an informal future candidate for global leadership roles, including the UNA, coming soon, reflect similar ethical leadership patterns. Let's begin our X-ray scan now. For this, we will, considering the profiles that we have selected, we will separate by 4 sectors. The first one, tech and ethics. Dario Amodei and Satya Nadella. What's their challenge? Fast-moving, high-risk AI development. Dario Amodei operationalizes ethics in AI by defining clear red lines before development and favor transparency in a competitive landscape. Employees remain loyal due to shared values and beliefs, demonstrating that ethical clarity and trust attract and retain talent while enabling rapid innovation. On the other hand, Nadella shapes culture through structure, empathy, learning, and very importantly, stakeholder-centric decision-making. By integrating responsible AI practices and aligning corporate strategy with human-centered outcomes, he capitalized on long-term stakeholder value while also sustaining innovation. Next sector, luxury and human centricity. Lena Nair. What's her challenge? Aligning legacy luxury brand with modern workforce needs. Lena Nair leverages her HR background to embed care, inclusion, and human-centric leadership into strategy. By prioritizing employee well-being and engagement, she shows that ethical, human-driven leadership strengthens organizational performance and adaptability. Next sector, competition and collaboration. Arthur Mensch. What's his challenge? Competing globally as a European AI startup. Arthur Mensch builds Mistral AI into a leading European company capable of competing globally by reducing dependency on dominant players. Through transparent operations, collaborative projects, and open-weight AI models, he creates both resilience and sector-wide trust. Fourth sector and final, governance and moral anchors. Ursula von der Leyen and President Zelensky. What's their challenge? Ethical governance amid geopolitical and technological disruption. Von der Leyen operationalizes ethics through actionable regulation, notably the EU AI Act, with its weak points, perhaps, but this has helped to set Europe as a pioneer region in AI governance. By codifying transparency, accountability, and oversight, she creates predictable frameworks that guide organizations in navigating disruptive technology responsibly. And finally, but not less important, President Zelensky anchors leadership in empathy, humility, and hope, maintaining national cohesion under extreme pressure. His transparent decision-making and values-driven approach inspire trust, demonstrating how ethical clarity and human connection drive resilience in crisis. When we synthesize these actions across policy, luxury, and tech, 3 common non-negotiable traits emerge. Ego-free pivot, identity separate from strategy, clarity of conscience, ethical limits defined before testing, and collective success, ecosystem first. Why does this commitment to ethical clarity and ecosystem success matter today? Organizations rooted in shared values show up to 60% more employee engagement. This isn't soft leadership. It is hard, sustainable strategic advantage that retains talent and accelerates performance. Customers, clients are also paying attention to this more carefully these days. Not to mention, new generations are becoming more demanding. This capability to thrive proactively is what the great thinkers demand of us. After all, our products may come and go, but our values are timeless. What is your legacy as a leader, as a company? We have just looked at leaders operating in very different contexts: technology, luxury, governance, and even wartime leadership. They don't share the same personality, politics, or industries, but when you look closely, their leadership patterns converge. What you saw were not traits of charisma or style. I think you will agree. You saw repeatable behaviors, decisions made under pressure, guided by clear values. That's where the VALUE value framework comes from, the one I will show you just next. This is not a theoretical model. It's a practical distillation of what ethical leadership looks like when conditions are unstable and stakes are high. Value doesn't tell leaders what to think. It helps leaders decide how to act when speed, uncertainty, and ethical tension collide. Each letter represents a leadership behavior you can apply immediately in a meeting, in a decision, or in a moment of pressure. And one important clarification: the name value matters far less than the behaviors behind it. This framework doesn't replace existing leadership tools. It complements them by answering a very specific question. How do I lead responsibly when everything keeps moving? We will evaluate each letter, each vector, and for each of them, we will define 3 practical elements that you can implement starting today. First, the action. What is that strategic shift? 2, the practical step. How do we start this week? The concrete example. Number 3, why does it work? Let's look at the first one. V, vulnerable adaptability. The action: lead with an ego-free mindset. The fastest leaders today are not the ones who never fail, but the ones who learn in public. Practical step: in your next team review, shift the focus from who is responsible to what did we learn. Example: a product launch misses its adoption target. Instead of opening with performance justifications, the leader starts the meeting by saying, here is where my assumptions were wrong. Let's list 3 things we know now that we didn't know before. The result is psychological safety increases, learning accelerates, and teams course correct faster. Next letter, anchor trajectory. Action: codify your ethical red lines, very important. Stability in motion comes from principles, not rigid rules. Practical step: document your top 3 ethical red lines and use them as filters for decisions. Concrete example: a potential client offers a lucrative contract but asks for opaque data usage. One red line states, We do not compromise user transparency, even under commercial pressure. Decision becomes simple, not emotional, not political. The team feels protected, never exposed. Next one, leadership of care. Action. Treat well-being as a strategic asset, not as a soft benefit. Practical step, move care from HR to leadership KPIs. Concrete example, a manager's quarterly evaluation includes one question. What did you actively do this quarter to reduce burnout or friction for your team? This reframes care as leadership behavior, not empathy alone, but intentional action. Next one, unifying the ecosystem. Action, shift from ownership to stewardship. In disruption, trust scales faster than control. Practical step, identify one insight, process, or learning you can share without competitive risk. Concrete example, a company publishes its internal lessons learned on AI bias, testing, or supply chain resilience. Competitors don't gain an advantage, but the ecosystem gains trust and the company becomes a reference point. This is what Anthropic has been doing, for instance. E and final, ecosystem-wide accountability. Action, audit decisions beyond short-term KPIs. Practical step, create a small cross-functional ethical lens team. Concrete example, before launching a new feature, this group asks, if this scales globally, who might be negatively impacted in 5 years? This doesn't slow decisions. It prevents costly reputational and regulatory damage later. Notice something important. None of these steps require new technology or extra budget. Pretty much not even board authorization. Only leadership intention. That's why they work. We have analyzed the framework. Now let's face the ultimate choice we all share. So, what do we want to be? Change resistant, change resilient, or change responsible? We can move toward that responsible leadership today with a simple commitment. Commit to one value vector this week. The main one, maybe. Document your 3 ethical red lines. What many companies call also the code of ethics. If you haven't done it, you may want to explore that. But just start with your 3 ethical red lines, just 3 of them. We often talk about leadership in terms of control, certainty, and answers, but the leaders who thrive in perpetual motion don't have more certainty, they have more clarity. Clarity about who they are, clarity about what they will not compromise, and clarity about the impact they choose to leave behind. Ethical leadership in disruption is not about perfection. It is about clarity, consistency, and humanity, especially when it's uncomfortable. Inspired by Lina Nair's motto, leadership in perpetual motion means choosing to, I quote here, lift as you climb. Not someday, now, while everything is still moving. It's our choice. Before we open for questions, I want to leave you with resources to continue this learning. All of these interviews or contributions by the profiles that we earlier studied are easily available on internet, and I truly invite you to take some time and evaluate them in depth.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Evelyn Tai. At this point in time, we're now going to go into the question section, and we'll await people to respond or to ask questions. For those that have questions on the mic, you can switch on your mic and talk. You'll be ready to hear you. And for those that want to write in the message section, you can write in the message section. Thank you very much.
Stine just left us a question. What strategies help leaders maintain team motivation and trust during ongoing transformation? Transparency about what's going on, about the challenges the company, the organization is facing, with all the potential negative consequences internally and externally. I think that nothing should be ever be hidden from the team. The more transparent we are, even in difficult times, the easier will be to navigate this together. How should leadership styles evolve as organizations grow more complex and dynamic? The reason why I focus the framework on the ethical path is because this is the constant strategy to implement regardless the time, but moreover during these disrupting times. I think we all know traditional leadership strategies, recommendations. We are all excellent, but indeed some of them have become a bit obsolete. I think that framing us into the framework that we just explored together, this would really make the transition into a more, if not acceptable, fair process. How can leaders encourage innovation while managing the risk associated with constant change? By letting the teams know that failure is permitted. Well, you create this safety environment of, I have a voice, I have an idea, but this may not work. When you are invited to that, the team, the organization can keep growing. So I would say that invitation to try and fail, but while keep moving forward. What role does emotional intelligence play in leading teams through perpetual motion? Well, more than ever, this is one of the main ingredients, and we highlight this as being one of the common traits from the leaders that we studied. For instance, at Chanel, a house that we would have never considered beyond talking about the trend of the season, having the CEO starting every main conversation about human-centric decisions, well, that definitely leads the path for the rest, I guess. So it's more than ever important. We all are concerned about our future in this evolving time we live with AI and other concerns we have. So taking care of the well-being of those around us makes a difference. I think before we might have neglected and we have learned the wrong way, but more than ever, this cannot be disregarded. How can leaders balance long-term vision with the need for rapid short-term decision-making? How can leaders balance long-term vision with the need for rapid short-term decisions-making? I think that in the aim of being competitive, we should never forget our principles, our values, to never put in risk what we represent and the safety of all our stakeholders. I think that nothing speaks again against growth, innovation, and competitivity, but once again, these rapidly need to be part of the change. To compete should never be in prejudice of these values.
I think we've reached the end of our questions in the messages, but there's one last question on the mic, and it goes as follows. Personally, for you, in what moment in your life did you ever need to use this leadership format, where there's everything around you is going wrong, and then you are supposed to remain strong?
In my personal experience, one of the moments where I would have liked to be much more proactive, I would say, is during when you face some last minute changes and you are against the watch and you have some budget in the middle and things start going wrong. I think that I recognize the value precisely of being fully transparent with the people I was working with, whether that was the person above me and the person and the people next to me. I think that it's it's about fighting that fear of failure and how we will look face to the people we work with. I think transparency has always been an ingredient, because I think it might be disappointing to fail, but at least you will never lose the respect for those working with you. So, and that's what keeps trust. I think that's the most important. So transparency among everything, above everything.
Then I do have a final question on transparency. How much transparency is too much? For example, isn't it necessary sometimes for a leader to keep the people blind while they make certain moves in order to reorient things in the right direction? For example, if you are in a company and you know that you're going bankrupt, isn't it sometimes to keep the people blind so that they do not become demoralized and think there is no hope while you try to work on finding the solution?
Well, certainly, each case in particular, it defines the right strategy. So when we talk about transparency, I would say in general, transparency is the key way to go. But within that same strategy, there are let's call it sub strategies. And I think that if you're a leader, if you are the head of an organization, and if you I would say you should always first, before announcing it, like, hello, everybody, here is a memo. We are going to sync tomorrow. Definitely, you need to take the time to analyze things and consult with your most immediate advisors, whether they are legal, communication, HR. And in a more petit comité, of course, determine the potential risks of how the information will impact people. So of course, there is a layer of analyzing carefully how you will communicate following this transparency principle. But yes, definitely, you always need to be very careful, whether it's internally and externally. I think that companies like, once again, Anthropic, that they are great publishing on transparency, what is working, what is not working. Of course, from the lab results, they just not simply publish to the public, right? They go through legal, they go through communication, because we, of course, need to be very careful about the message. What is important is not to hide we in bad faith. So I think at the end, ethics is sustaining what it's in good faith. It's about moral values. It's about good intentions. So I think it's hard to truly measure, unfortunately, those elements, because they are very personal, right? But I think as long as there is good faith, and you maybe took 2 days to announce a bad news to your team because you were truly trying to gather a solution before impacting them negatively, their mental safety, that's perfectly valid. So I would say it all comes back to the very same, the willingness to do things right.
And I think with that question, we've reached the end of today's session. Thank you very much, Ms. Evelyn Tai. And to the Tamkin community and everyone who's managed to join us for today's session, would like to thank you for attending, and everyone that is going to see it when it's published. We hope that you react and interact with the video. Also try to leave comments. We'll try our best to transfer the messages over to Ms. Evelyn Tai. Now, thank you very much once more for your time, Ms. Evelyn. And we hope that we can have another session with you, because we've definitely learned a lot. On my part, I've gotten to ask my questions, and I think I'm satisfied. And with that said, I would give you the last words if you have anything else to say.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation and the interest from the audience. I think that by judging by the questions you all made, that makes you already great leaders. Regardless, I don't know each of you's industry and particular profile, but I think that regardless where you are, regardless what you do, always try, even if it's difficult. What is the impact my decision will have directly and indirectly in society? Because as we said before, why I'm here, what I want to transmit, and ultimately, what is the legacy me as a leader I want to leave. So I think that, and something that maybe my dad always told me, and this is a very easy then way to answer what I asked before: do anything that your children will be proud of you, not the other way around. So whenever in doubt, ask yourself, in the future, would they be proud of what I did or not? And then you will have the answer.
Thank you very much, Evelyn. And thank you to the audience. I will end now the session, and thank you. See you next time.
Thank you. Have a lovely day.